Happy Monday. Yes, we are working at 6 o'clock here on the East Coast. Another chaotic weekend in Minnesota. Radical anti-ICE mobs stormed a peaceful church service, trampling on religious freedoms to harass a pastor and attendees. But Trump's DOJ says they're on it. Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights of the U.S. DOJ, Harmeet Dhillon, sounds off in just a bit. Plus, President Donald Trump says he plans to sue J.P. Morgan Chase for claiming the bank wrongfully cut off his accounts after January 6th. Now, he argues that the move was political and part of a wider pattern of debanking of conservatives. The bank, though, responding by saying that it does not debank individuals over political beliefs. The discovery ought to be pretty interesting there. And in the midst of all this chaos, we didn't forget about Biden's auto pen, and neither did Trump. Over the weekend, the president called for arrests and potential criminal prosecution with a, quote, price to pay that has to be a big one. Accountability, hopefully, is coming. Looking at you, Pam Bondi. But first, anarchists in Minnesota are, dare I say, on thin ice. Let's do this. What would you do in today's climate if you were in church and this happened? Look, dozens of anti-ICE protesters swarm in mid-sermon, screaming, yelling, demanding that you denounce ICE, harassing your family. A guy who is too far left for CNN walks in also and tells you it's because you're a white supremacist.
Certain degree of entitlement. I think people who are, in the religious groups like that, it's not the type of Christianity that I practice, but I think that they're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy.
That's why you don't have a job anymore, Don. Like, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say I'd be willing to bet that there wasn't a single white supremacist in that whole church. Also, Don seems to hate white people an awful lot, which is weird because he's married to a white dude. But seriously, put yourself in that position in that church. I mean, what do you do? I mean, I would be in fear for my safety and for my family's, not from Don Lemon, but from the rest of the mob. I might be inclined to draw my weapon. Under Minnesota state laws, it would be justified. Oh, Carl, you're overreacting. I can see the liberal headlines now. You would just be making the situation worse. Would I? Because it's pretty bad already. Because for those folks, this weekend, before they even walked into that church, they watched a conservative activist be dragged by a mob where they beat him with objects and kicked him and punched him while the crowd was yelling, "Kill him." Another patron helped him get out of Dodge, thankfully. They watched journalists getting into their cars and having their windows smashed with frozen bottles of water and threatening the people inside. There were hotels where ICE agents were staying where either kicked them out altogether or they were being vandalized. These mobsters were attacking vehicles, carrying people that they didn't even like, kicking and punching them. And just as they were trying to flee, they didn't even verify who they were. Attacking someone for wearing an American flag sweatshirt, forcing him to take it off. Yeah, okay, you would have had to tear that sweatshirt off my cold, dead body. There's zero chance. I would have crushed these people if they tried to get me to give up my flag. Not happening. These are the same maniacs out there stopping ordinary people. They were just stopping random people on the street for driving the same cars that ICE agents rent from the rental car company, making them open their cars for inspections like some third world militia does in Sudan. And those same goons openly carrying guns in the street, albeit most of them are .22s. It appears to be locked and loaded with the bolt closed. You can't see any rounds in the side channel of the magazine, but I know because, my kids have these guns that you can have at least 10 rounds in there before they extend below the bottom of the mag well. So who knows? Which is also hilarious because the same left went nuts when the McCluskeys had an AR-15 on their own property to stop thugs from trespassing. Funny how it comes around and not one Democrat seems to care or is even concerned in the least bit about finding out if these loons legally possess that gun in the first place. For some reason, the Second Amendment is all of a sudden super important to them. I mean, hats off to you, Trump. You made the left support open carry in the streets. Never thought I'd see that coming. But in light of all that, you tell me, folks, how should I feel when someone storms my church? You got your family there. In light of all the stuff I just told you about that happened in that same community, I'd probably have my gun drawn. And if they came at me, I'd probably be willing to stack bodies. I mean, do you think that's harsh? Put your kids in that situation. What would you do? I think that's the environment that these thugs have created. Just, like Kenosha, when Kyle Rittenhouse had to shoot 3 people and was fully acquitted. Why? Because he was justified. You see, this is my country too. And unemployable, purple-haired, flesh-hoop hippie protesters, their First Amendment rights don't supersede my rights to protect my family and be comfortable. Because I just witnessed a mob screaming, quote, "kill him," to someone that didn't bend the knee to them. That's the environment that ICE didn't create that. Trump didn't create that. Frey and Waltz fostered that by not enforcing the law. And we're going to have Harmeet Dhillon on a minute here, but Don Lemon knew this. He knew this church raid was coming. He embedded in that group ahead of time and then went right to the pastor when they all busted in there to lecture him on rights.
I have to take care of my flock.
Okay, but listen, we live in there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Yeah. We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me.
I would have pushed him right out the front door. But no, Don, the First Amendment doesn't give you the right to break into a church and protest after being asked to leave. It's private property, and I think you should be arrested for violating the FACE Act, which clearly says, and it's a bit legalese, quote, "by force or threat of force or by physical obstruction, intentional injuries, intimidates or interferes with or attempts to injure, intimidate or interfere with any person lawfully exercising or seeking to exercise the First Amendment right of religious freedom at a place of worship." This is the act that they used against the grandmother and others who were peacefully praying outside an abortion clinic because they were accused of blocking the doors from the outside. So if prayer in front of an abortion clinic can get old people thrown in jail, there better be some arrest coming for this. They stormed into the church and they refused to leave, intimidating people. And also, trying to remember, but didn't Tim Waltz, he told us that ICE was going to be the one storming churches, right?
I would not put it past this administration to target midnight mass services amongst folks going to worship.
Right, he did, but actually, it was his rabid anti-ICE people. Cool story, bro. This is who the left loves. While ICE is trying to arrest a child predator, Waltz's constituents are trying to block them.
That vehicle right there is honking and impeding our investigations while we're trying to arrest a child sex offender. That's who you guys are protecting. Insane.
And a federal judge just blocked ICE from using almost any measures of crowd control. Yet you've got guys like Eric Swalwell saying that ICE is going to lose their federal immunity and driver's licenses when he gets to be governor.
They're going to lose their immunity. They're not going to be able to drive. I will take your driver's license. Good luck walking to work.
Well, first off, he's never going to be governor, mostly because he may not even be legally allowed to run. Not because he took 10 grand from a Chinese law firm or slept with a Chinese spy, but because his residency apparently is all messed up too. Also, governors can't take federal immunity. So funny that this is the lib stance now, because it was Obama who awarded Tom Homan the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his service to ICE. Oh, forgot about that one, libs. Don't worry, we didn't. Independent journalist Cam Higby is out there on the scene. Cam, this is crazy. Let's go back to this open carry. You've got a bunch of people that wanted to take everybody's guns 6 months ago, walking around with loaded ARs.
Yeah, it's funny because they're also anarchists, but when you push the police out and then start walking around with guns and patrolling the streets, you de facto become a police force. Yeah. So do you hate the police or no?
That's actually a good point. So you're there. I mean, usually when it gets down to like 0 degrees, like it is right now, I see you bundled up. Most of these people go home. Who is supplying these like top of the line North Face jackets that I see these people in?
That's a great question, Carl. But I think what you're going to see a lot more of in the coming days is indoor protests. So breaking into more buildings like the church behind me that you were just talking about, breaking into more targets to do sit-ins, City Hall maybe, the state capitol, stuff like that, because it's supposed to get even worse than it is now, and I think it's 2 degrees as we speak.
Yeah, and also, what are you seeing from some of these local businesses, local churches? Are they arming up? Are they hiring security? Like, what is their response in light of what just happened in there?
I haven't seen that from normal businesses, but I'll tell you what, if you go to Cedar and Riverside, which is the heart of the Somali community in the United States, they have security everywhere. That place is crawling with security, both actual private security guards and also the Cedar Riverside Rapid Response Patrol teams, which is just a bunch of liberals in high visibility vests that will follow you around if they don't like you, harass you, or in the case of last night, rob Nick Sorter and then almost kill him.
Yeah, let's talk about that. They stole, I mean, I know he was supposed to be with us and he's out running around like in the middle of this stuff. They stole like $1,000 camera from him and he called the cops and the cops were like, go home.
Yeah. Well, actually, this is the first time that I've ever seen MPD respond to a situation like this. Nick and I have had to call 911 many times, but Minneapolis Police Department never came. We think we know why. It's because dispatch called it in that we were the ones dragging people with our car, so they responded.
Well, if they try to get in your car and you're driving away in fear for your life, that doesn't really meet that definition. A network of New York City socialists, so led by obviously the DSA, Democrat Socialists of America, which AOC has spoken at and all these things, they're organizing what they're saying is 4,000 activists for a rapid response to ICE operations. I mean, this is the Mamdan in New York. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. And Carl, I'm telling you, it all goes back to Minneapolis Police Department and Mayor Jacob Frey not doing their job. None of this would be happening. These rapid response teams that go out and harass ICE, that is only possible because MPD wasn't doing their jobs and keeping their citizens in line.
Yeah.
If MPD had been doing their job, Renee Good would be alive today.
Yeah. And also, like, if they had just said, like, hey, we're going to turn over these people that we arrested on something else to ICE, it should be totally fine. Real quick, before I let you go, the church behind you, how much damage was there from all these protests, if any?
I haven't been able to go inside. Nobody's here. I don't notice any damage externally. There's some trash laying around.
Yeah.
But I don't notice any external damage. There might be damage inside. I'm not sure. I haven't gotten a chance to go in.
Oh, the Democrats who always protest to save the environment. They seem to always leave trash around, like when they protested the Keystone Pipeline and left 40 dumpsters of junk. Cam Higby, stay safe out there, man. We'll have you back soon.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank you. On top of all this, now Trump's DOJ has launched a full investigation saying that these attacks against law enforcement and the intimidation of Christians specifically is being met with the, quote, full force of federal law. Bondi saying today in a tweet, if state leaders refuse to act responsibly to prevent lawlessness, this Department of Justice will remain mobilized and prosecute federal crimes and ensure that the rule of law prevails. Now, look, great. I'm glad there's an investigation, but none of this matters if you don't put someone in jail. Harmeet Dhillon, Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the U.S. DOJ. Harmeet, great to have you back on. This actually, the FACE Act, this could potentially be, I think it is, a blatant violation of these people storming a church, a violation of the FACE Act.
You're absolutely correct. The Attorney General reached out to me about this yesterday when I was on an airplane, and before I landed, we'd already scrambled the jets and gotten prosecutors assigned to this, as well as reached out to the FBI and had agents assigned, and the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minneapolis assigned to this. So there are already several law enforcement officials working on this as of yesterday evening. What people need to understand about the timing of arrests is we're a little bit different than the state prosecutors, who are, I think, frankly, refusing to do their jobs at this point. I have to get federal judges to sign off on arrest warrants before I can arrest somebody. So today's a federal holiday, and if it weren't, we have, certain slow rolling of things we're doing there, but we will get there. I have seen enough video and evidence at this point to believe that what we saw and what we're seeing on the screen there is multiple violations of, at a minimum, the FACE Act, as well as other federal statutes. And so we want to bring as strong a case as we can against as many of the offenders as we can. And we are doing that with all due speed. And the Attorney General is personally checking in with me every couple of hours, and she is extremely motivated to make sure that we do justice in this case.
I mean, this would be excellent. I mean, I know I've been hard on Attorney General Bondi in the past for not arresting people. This would be a great start. The other thing is, I mean, this was used against people praying outside of abortion clinics under the last administration. So here's the thing that I run into. I know you're a 2A person, but that also comes with a great level of responsibility. Personally, me, if I was at church, I carry my gun virtually everywhere I go, anywhere that it's legal. If I was at church and I watched a bunch of protesters come in screaming at me, some of which may or may not have been carrying weapons, we know that people have been carrying these guns in the streets, as I was just talking about, I might be considering firing on one of them if they kicked down the doors of my church. Where would the DOJ side if someone like me was in a position like that?
Well, so first of all, it's complicated because there are state laws that apply as well. In some states, it's not legal to carry a firearm in a house of worship. I think we can debate the appropriateness of that. I'm with you. I'm a Second Amendment advocate. I'd love to be able to carry my firearms everywhere, and yet you can't. So what we have seen in the Jewish community is that because they have faced numerous threats like this, they have pretty deep security outside every major synagogue in any blue jurisdiction to prevent exactly that kind of thing from happening. And
There's
so
a huge cost
we can't
to
have
that.
this in the United States. We have to have I'm embarrassed by that. It is a shame that in Los Angeles and in New York, people have to pay for their own security outside a house of worship when there are police stations nearby you pay taxes for. So I would have to wait and see the scenario before I could weigh in on that.
Right. Okay. Harmeet, the other thing, too, is Don Lemon, this guy, he goes into this church. He's like, I have a right to be here, blah, blah. The pastor's like, well, it's private property, and I'm telling you to leave. Roll this real quick.
There's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful.
What do you make of that, man?
I mean, that is just ignorant on so many levels. You don't have a right to protest in somebody's house, and that was God's house. And the First Amendment does not apply to your, barging in as a trespasser into God's house and literally violating federal law by disrupting a worship in progress and terrorizing children and moms and making them cry and running out the back door. And then he goes out and he says, this was the whole purpose. We want to put people in fear so that they rethink their policies. No. Not in a house of worship, a sanctuary of God. It is outrageous behavior. And by the way, outside he's backtracking and he's like, I think he realizes he's in hot water now by some of his statements he made yesterday to try to clean up what he did after I got activated and the Attorney General got activated on this. But the First Amendment does not protect journalists when they're committing crimes themselves. Okay, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, and he knew about this before he went into it. He just didn't disclose it because he was all in on the thing. Harmeet Dhillon, we appreciate it. And look, you say you've seen enough to start moving forward. I hope so. I hope to see that soon.
You will. Thank you.
All right. Coming up, Michael Cohen now saying he was coerced into testimony to help build cases against President Trump, specifically citing Alvin Bragg and Letitia James as having their own agenda. We're going to discuss that in a bit. But first, President Trump is threatening new tariffs on NATO allies, standing in the way of U.S. acquiring Greenland for all the right reasons. You're going to be shocked at the take on this next.
Charlie was the best of America, and the monster who attacked him was attacking our whole country.
Before Charlie Kirk died, he issued a stark warning of terrifying dangers ahead in a new book, Pagan Threat, authored by Pastor Lucas Miles. Charlie said Pagan Threat could save America and that you must read it. Get Pagan Threat free with Newsmax's special offer. Plus, get Dick Morse's new book, The Real Charlie Kirk. 2 great books with our free offer today.
And now here's Chris Cunahan with the Leaf Filter Gutter Report and what changing weather conditions can mean for your home. Chris?
Our patented leaf filter technology keeps your gutters clog-free year-round. No matter where you live, no matter the climate. Locally trained professionals will clean, repair, and install the Leaf Filter Gutter Protection System. Leaf Filter guarantees clog-free gutters for the life of your home. Schedule your free inspection today. Call 833-LEAF-FILTER or visit leaffilter.com.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
What if I told you there is a new global alignment? And I want you to hear me out, okay? Just hear me out first. Let's do the Greenland component. Greenland has been asking Denmark for help securing itself against Russia and China for over 20 years. They haven't done anything, nor has anyone from any side of the EU or on the NATO side. So case in point, Germany only sent like 14, I think it was literally 14 people when Trump threatened to invade. So you see the commitment from the EU. America, though, has had a treaty post-World War II to put bases basically anywhere they want. But we're not going to overly invest if it's not U.S. soil. But what if we were to acquire it? This would increase American soil by over 20% and enter what we would then call NORCOM, or Northern Command, where our radar could actually detect an ICBM from Russia or China 20 minutes earlier than it does now, because the path would be over the North Pole. This has also serious global impacts to our foes. We'll do China first. China owns 80 to 85% of the global EV battery industry and produces items for our EVs here in America at a ratio of 6 to 1 that we do internally. If America had access to Greenland, we could break that dependency within a year. We also would be able to produce most of our own chips, too, just from the rare earth minerals that are in Greenland. This would de-incentivize China from taking Taiwan, because that's really the only reason they want it, for the semiconductor market, which would hinder America if China controlled that. All right, stay with me here. Also, our acquisition that could break China's Northern Silk Road and secure a northern shipping channel, cutting off trade routes for China and Russia, but also giving us more secure options that could be taxed for other nations, i.e. making our shipping expenses go down dramatically. This would essentially turn Greenland into America's 12th carrier battle group as well. You can't sink it either. And in its current proposal, as the annex proposal stands, Trump offered every person in Greenland $100,000. That would cost us, there are only 57,000 people. It cost us $5.7 billion. Now, compare that to the over $8 billion price tag for a new aircraft carrier. Don't even get me started on the rest of the fleet. See, Trump's not shooting from the hip here. This would allow America to launch a fighter jet from American soil that could touch Beijing and Moscow, which Moscow, along with China, has been looking into take Greenland for a while now for the same reasons, because there's 50 billion barrels of oil just in offshore shallow water wells in and around Greenland, which if America took control of, we could theoretically change the impact of OPEC globally. Now, if we didn't need China for anything and Russia needed to come to the U.S. for oil because we were outproducing OPEC, or needed to beg us for access to the northern shipping routes, suddenly would we all become friends? They need us. Is Trump rebalancing global power with his Greenland move? Look, NATO was originally based on the opposition to fascism and communism. Now the UK puts people in jail for Facebook posts. They have socialist governments and have imported enough people to make them anti-American. We don't share the EU's values anymore. What if I told you that America and Russia had more in common than America and the EU? And before you freak out and say that I'm pro-Putin, listen to me, okay? Shut up. Putin is the worst, okay? I'm talking about the Russian people. Same demographic, generally same religious base, and given the opportunity, would probably side with American influence over Putin's de facto dictatorship. Remember, they were our ally against Nazi Germany not too long ago. But if Putin knew he couldn't survive our influence, I'd be willing to bet he would buckle. You rope in Brazil after they just saw us kidnap their neighbor's leader. Saudi Arabia would come to heel if we didn't need their oil from OPEC. China would be forced to go along with it after losing their northern mobility and shipping routes, and we wouldn't need their batteries. They'd be ostracized on a global trade route because, remember, Trump has exerted our power on the Panama Canal, so they basically can't get into any other ocean. And Europe, they gave up all their power plants in the Green New Deal aspirations. They imported foreigners, bankrupted themselves with social programs, and have been crushing their farms to the point that they can't even grow their own food anymore. So why do we need them anyway? They contribute basically nothing. 14 troops to it? Thanks, Germany. America's essentially 70% of NATO anyway. Democrats think Trump is just like randomly doing stuff because he's crazy. No, he's actually like 17 steps ahead. And by the time the rest of the world realize it, they're too far behind to do anything about it. Former U.S. Ambassador to the Kingdom of Denmark, Carla Sands. All right, Ms. Ambassador, this actually, when you put it all together, it's like, wow, maybe Trump does know what he's doing.
Carl, it's so true. Oh my gosh. I mean, you just said a lot there. But President Trump is, it's changing the narrative so fast. He's now, just a few days ago announced that he wants to own Greenland. So he's put it out there on the table in social media. And so I guess that's official. No COFAs on the table. It's an outright purchase. And it could be because the Danish leader has been so oppositional and really filled the minds of these poor Greenlanders who just want to live the Greenlandic dream, but really filled their minds with propaganda and made them afraid of us.
But Ambassador, I mean, he's also basically placed 10% tariffs for now, 25% soon if the EU doesn't go along with this. Can they survive that?
Well, and I think this is such a diplomatic coup. To do this is so brilliant. What a way to get your allies to behave better to your proposal. They're figuring out what they're going to do, but I think they're going to have to work with President Trump. I wish they would have started working with him earlier. And the Prime Minister of Denmark, I wish she had called him. She never called him for a year, but went behind his back to talk to these other European leaders to try to get their support, rather than getting in the room and getting a deal on the table.
Yeah, well, Ambassador Sands, it just sounds like Trump's probably going to get this done because he usually does. We appreciate it very much, ma'am.
Great to be with you. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you. All right, coming up, imagine he's actually going to get this. A crazy guy, he's going to get it done. It's awesome. Democrats, the party of illegal aliens, pro-crime, and wasting our taxpayer dollars. Now, Governor J.B. Pritzker is handing criminals get-out-of-jail-free cards. All that and more in our Culture Clash. Hey, I'm Carl Higbie from Newsmax. Look, I'm unapologetically pro-American, and honestly, this is the one place that lets me call it how it is. I'm not holding back. I'll give it to you straight every single night.
Don't kibble your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Matt.
What's wrong with this?
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means they're ultra-processed. At Dr. Marty, we freeze-dried premium meats, fruits, and vegetables, and they're gonna love it.
Hello, I'm Franklin Graham. As we approach this new year, we see a lot of difficulty out there. The violence on the street, the upheaval, and it's not just here, but it's around the world, and it seems like everything's getting ready to implode. Well, I can tell you right now, our world needs peace, and we need God's peace. And God's peace comes through faith in His Son, Jesus Christ. That's right, Jesus Christ. He came from heaven to this earth to take our sins. He died and shed His blood on the cross for our sins. He was buried. On the third day, God raised Him to life. If you've never trusted Him as your Savior, you can do that right now. Just pray this prayer with me. Just say, God, I'm a sinner. I'm sorry. Forgive me. I believe that Jesus Christ is your Son. I'd like to trust Him as my Savior right now, and I want to follow Him as my Lord forever. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, call that number right now that's on the screen. We have some folks that would like to speak with you, pray with you, but call that number on the screen. God bless you.
Total Beats, America's best-selling Beats brand, is available at Walmart. Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews contain a key ingredient clinically shown to deliver 2 times better blood pressure support. Take control of your health. Head to Walmart and get Total Beats blood pressure support soft chews today.
Buying a new car? You need WeatherTech. Perhaps a nice used car? You need WeatherTech. Or maybe you're still driving Old Faithful. You need WeatherTech. No matter the age of your vehicle, American-made WeatherTech products are the solution. Because messes don't care what year your vehicle is.
See? You do need WeatherTech.
Order your American-made protection at WT.com.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Ring in the new year with a kitchen designed to wow. It's the perfect time to explore our quality kitchen cabinet collections to find the well-crafted style you want. Because for a limited time only, you can get the kitchen of your dreams with 0% APR for 48 months. We'll even help you bring your vision to life with a free 3D design consultation. Hurry, offer ends soon. Only at Cabinets to Go. Designed to wow.
Libs like kick and scream to have our borders wide open and come up with this genius idea to try to prove that migrants can integrate into the Western civilization. I love this. Take this woke integration experiment. This is from a few years ago, but they buried it because they didn't want us to know the results. This is 125 Dutch students were, as part of the study, were forced to live with 125 refugees. Now, the goal was to encourage students to form a buddy partnership to help migrants adjust to the Dutch society. But the results, the students were subjected to years of stalking, harassment, physical attacks, and even gang rapes by the migrants. Great experiment. I could have told you this was going to happen without any experiment or any study, just based on any mass Muslim migration we've seen over the past 2 decades. Political strategist and CEO of Compass Strategies, Luke Ball, and Washington Times editor-at-large for law and politics, Alex Swoyer. Luke, I mean, not surprised by this, but they buried it for 5 years.
They buried it. They didn't want anyone to find out about it. And I wonder if they think that we as conservatives just sit around trying to come up with talking points and some false narrative to try to impress upon the policies that we are pushing. But in reality, we realize that if you start to implement the radical things that the left wants to put into place, there are real world consequences. This article said there were gang rapes, that there were sexual assaults, that there was violence, that there was physical assaults, and the list goes on and on. We want safety and security, and that's why we promulgate the policies that we talk about.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine why we feel the way we do just because it's happened. All right, so it's obviously clear, Alex, that Democrats are pro-crime, but Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the Clean Slate Act. Now, this is a law that automatically seals eligible criminal records every 6 months. This includes nonviolent misdemeanors like drug possession, theft, and disorderly conduct. Listen to his explanation on why he thinks this is a good idea. Roll it.
This is also good for the Illinois economy. This law will unlock $4.7 billion in lost wages. This law reduces crime.
I mean, why even do a background check at this point? Yeah, that's exactly why I want to hire some, expunged criminal.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with this. First of all, these criminals could have gone in and on their own appealed to have their records sealed. So there wasn't some sort of deprivation happening. But what this does is we're talking about nonviolent crimes. However, they include things like you talked about, theft, stalking, for example. I'm sure if you live in a community, you would like to know who your neighbors are. You might want to do a little research, especially a private home association might want to see who's moving in. I'm very uncomfortable with this, especially having worked in a district attorney's office while in law school. Everyone will tell you, you usually don't start out with a felony. They usually start in misdemeanor and kind of work their way up. So here's one of those, this is a dangerous precedent that's being set, but not surprising. So we'll have to see. And I'm definitely going to see if Pritzker's right about the lost wages. Something tells me in a few years when we go back to check that it's not going to be that amount.
But, Luke, in essence to all this, too, Chuck Schumer is planning to undo all these DOGE cuts. What do you make of this?
Yeah, he wants to raise taxes. He wants to spend our money. He wants to undo all of the DOGE cuts that Americans voted for. And it's what the Democrats are going to be running on. And as I've looked toward the midterm elections and beyond, I think that the Democrats are going to champion as their main narrative reconstructing the administrative state. That's something they're going to champion as a talking point, not something that I would think would appeal to the American voter, especially after all of the money that taxpayers have saved. But if that's their game plan and that's their strategy, then have at it, because I don't think it's going to work very well.
Alex, I want to be brief here, but Democrats like Zorhan Mamdani wants to spend $4 million for new commodes. Roll this.
Might seem like a laughing matter, but
public restroom access is a real issue here in New York.
And one we're committed to solving. That's why we're proud to announce not just the construction of a new automatic public toilet right here in Harlem at 12th and St. Clair,
but also a new pilot program to make it easier to build new public restrooms all across our great city.
So it cost them $5.5 million to build 5 last year. I don't want to poop in that one.
I kind of think he's flushing money down the toilet, pardon the pun. But there's a couple things I noticed online that I thought were worth highlighting. One is a lot of people have pointed out, great, there's another space for homeless to go and do drugs. Not to mention how unsanitary I expect that those places to be, but also the fact that there seems to be men and women restrooms, which you might want to remind Mamdani that might be a problem for this party. I don't know if they actually have identified that there's 2 genders, but it seems like that's part of the premise here.
That's actually excellent. Luke, Alex, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, great point, actually. All right, coming up, the left star witness, Michael Cohen, just came out and claimed he was coerced into negatively testifying about Trump. Whoa, next.
I'm John Glasgow, and whether the story is right here in New York City in a courthouse or at the border wall in Arizona, we're going to be boots on the ground to bring you all the facts to make sure that you get the story straight, because that's what's important to us right here at Newsmax.
Joining us is Dr. Drew from the Wellness Company with advice for dealing with seasonal colds and flu. Doctor?
Cold and flu season is here, and every year you or a loved one gets sick. Your doctor can't see you. Waiting in a crowded urgent care is brutal. This is a particularly bad cold and flu season, and it's why doctors suggest every family needs an emergency medical kit. Your medical emergency kit is filled with essential prescriptions. It includes antibiotics like generic Z-Pak to get well faster, amoxicillin for pneumonia, strep throat, ear infections, plus prescriptions for nausea and UTIs, and even ivermectin. It's easy. Just match your symptoms to the prescription in your guidebook or call the telemedicine doctor standing by. Take your medication early and feel better faster. Having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care in your home. No waiting to see a doctor, no lines at the pharmacy.
Smart advice. We've shared the website and discount code below to save viewers $45. Order now and your kit will be rushed to your door. Thank you, doctor.
I wanted to have control over drinking instead of alcohol having control over me. I started with Or Health about a year ago. It put the brakes on that I had been looking for. I can drink less and say no, and it's the best feeling in the world.
Text Newsmax to 710-710 to learn more.
The poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time.
This is the home of Galina. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help rush a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
Eggs. It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives.
Star witness of the Trump lawfare, Michael Cohen, just came out and said that he felt pressured by New York prosecutors to provide negative testimony against Trump. Cohen wrote on Substack titled "When Politics Blind Justice," that's his little fun blog he's got there. There are moments when silence becomes complicity, when letting the record stand without context feels less like restraint and more like consent. This is one of those moments. He said, I felt pressured and coerced to not only provide information and testimony that would satisfy the government's desire to build the cases against Trump and secure judgment and convictions against President Trump. Cohen's left-wing network Media's Touch actually dropped him on Saturday after this, and he announced he wouldn't be carrying his show anymore. Trump reacting to all this on Truth Social saying, quote, these horrible radical left people doing everything possible to destroy our country should pay a big price. This was a setup from the beginning. New York courts with many fair and wonderful judges are embarrassed by what has happened. We cannot let this pass. We do really need to know what this is. I mean, was this an agreement of some sort with Cohen? Joe Pags, host of the Joe Pags Show. Sir, I mean, is it possible that they said, hey, we won't prosecute you if you come out against Trump, but if you don't, we're going to hammer you?
Of course. That's exactly what they probably did. Carl, thanks for having me. By the way, I doubt he said he was pressured, but he said, I was pressured. It was so hard for me to try to do this with Trump. His accent alone is just, it seems fake to me. Carl, this is a guy who will lie his way in. He'll lie his way out. He's a convicted liar. And President Trump really does rely on loyalty. I hope that he's not sort of flip-flopping on Michael Cohen, because Cohen comes out and says what I think you and everybody watching knew at the time. Of course, this guy who is fighting for Trump every day on national television and then flipped on him, of course the guy was doing it for his own self-preservation. Yeah, well, put him in the category of Michael Avenatti, who the Democrats were once going to have run for president, which would have been hilarious. This is something I wanted to avoid at all costs, which was the Golden Globes, but actually, this is good, okay? Yeah. They added a podcasting category to their award show this year, but I wanted to give notoriety to somebody that didn't make their little bucket of weird tricks, Joe Rogan. Now, take a listen to what Bill Maher's had to say about this.
It was glaring that Joe Rogan was not nominated.
For Best Podcast?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have an inaugural podcast category.
And you don't have...
It just speaks to living in the blue sky bubble. Yeah. But get out of your bubble, you know? I want to be one of you. I am one of you. But you're just so hard to defend because you're just so smug. And this town is the epicenter of the problem.
So I wanted to give Joe Rogan the shout out that he should have been on that list. Agree or disagree with the guy?
I absolutely agree Joe Rogan should have been on there. And I agree with what Bill Maher just said. I'm not a big Bill Maher guy, I'll be honest with you. I'm not really sure where he is on half the time. But coming out and saying that against the smug Hollywood elites was the right thing to do. Because, Carl, they all showed up, and some little doofus handed them a little Renee Good pin, and they all put it on, and they all complained about ICE. They all complained about President Trump. And you got a guy in Joe Rogan who half the time's for Trump, half the time is against Trump, will just speak his mind and has millions upon millions of listeners and followers and viewers every day. To leave him out basically says our awards mean nothing. I agree with Bill Maher on this one, big time.
Well, the awards do mean nothing. You and I both know that.
That's true.
All right, Jennifer Welsh, one of these left liberal white ladies with a podcast, actually had Jim Acosta. I didn't even know this guy was still in the country. You're talking about the blue tsunami that's coming when Democrats retake power. Listen to this.
The blue tsunami means that Congress is going to haul Elon Musk, big balls, and a bunch of other people's in front and say, what crimes did you commit? I think to reconcile all of this is going to take hardcore, not integrity Democrats. F you Democrats, you for over our country. We are serious about this. We are prosecuting. We're going to uncover every document, every phone call, everything you did. We will be relentless about it.
These are the people that are complaining that Trump is misusing the justice system now.
Yeah, they attacked him, 91 indictments. It didn't make any sense. You and I can't, and we're pretty intelligent guys, I'd say. We can't tell anybody watching, listening what the 34 felonies were. We still have no idea.
It was one misdemeanor.
Didn't know. Right, exactly right. And it was a dead misdemeanor, by the way. The statute of limitations was over. It didn't make any sense. And I don't know who this woman is, but she's on my feed all the time now. I guess it's the F-word podcast or something. They had to bleep out everything. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got somebody who is either acting like she's outraged to get the views, news and to get the money, or she's really this stupid. I'm not sure which one it is, because what she said is completely the opposite of reality. Trump has been attacked. You've been attacked. I've been attacked.
Yeah.
The left wing has been doing the attacking. She's got to get real.
Yeah, real. Well, someone who is real. Joe Pags, we appreciate it, sir.
My man, thank you, Carl.
All right, coming up, you heard of Martin Luther King Day. Well, now get ready for Kamala Harris Day, you know, for all of her amazing accomplishments, I guess. More of that garbage next.
This isn't your average pill. This is Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks.
Rose Sparks is a fast-acting solution because it dissolves under your tongue.
Rose Sparks.
Guys, get started today.
Connect with a provider to find out if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Hey guys, Viagra is not your only option. Rose Sparks act fast and stay active longer. They aren't pills. Sparks dissolve under your tongue to reach your bloodstream for speedy results. Connect with a provider at ro.co/sparks.
I'm David Wright, former New York Mets third baseman, and I support the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. I've seen firsthand the great work they do helping our firefighters, our police, and our soldiers and their families. T2T is asking for your support for these brave men and women. Just $11 a month will go a long way and make a big difference. Go to t2t.org to find out more. Let's go Mets, and let's do good together.
Hi, I'm Ben Cozy. Isn't traveling a pain in the neck? You're cramped, uncomfortable, and forget about getting any rest. There's nothing cozy about airplane seats or hard plastic benches, and those so-called travel pillows, they just don't cut it. You don't need another travel pillow. You need Be Cozy, the world's most comfortable neck pillow. Trapped in the middle seat? Wrap Be Cozy around your neck to stop chin drop bobblehead napping. Smashed up against the window? Fold Be Cozy over and tuck it onto your shoulder for super side support. Frequent flyer miles got you sitting aisle? Turn Be Cozy to the side for the perfect pillow position. Everyone wants to be cozy, so get the world's most comfortable travel neck pillow and be cozy just like me, Ben Cozy. You get to be cozy. Everyone gets a Be Cozy. Only Be Cozy has patented overlapping arms, so you get double support and the comfort you need in any seat on any trip. Go online right now and get this exclusive TV offer. Buy one Be Cozy, get one 50% off. Get yours now.
Your Florida life is calling, and we have the answer. Valencia in Florida by GL Homes. Premium 55-plus living in 5 prime Florida locations. Gorgeous new homes from the mid-300s to $2.5 million. World-class resort-style living 24/7. Huge clubhouses, on-site dining, pickleball, and more. Effortless, low-maintenance living. Valencia, your Florida life is calling. Experience more at valenciaflorida.com.
Here we go again.
Everyone wants to know. So here it is.
Melania, rated PG, exclusively in theaters January 30th.
Well, to those of you from home or from work today, in honor of Martin Luther King Day, just think, this time next year, you could also be observing Kamala Harris Day on January 14th if you live in Jackson, Mississippi.
In recognition of your many, many firsts, in recognition of all of the accomplishments that you've made, you are the first African American to hold the office of Vice President. I signed a proclamation declaring January 14th, 2026, Kamala Harris Day in Jackson, Mississippi.
I'm going to work on January 14th because I refuse to acknowledge that. I mean, name me one of her accomplishments besides her gender or skin color. It's unbelievable. Ashley Brasfield, reporter at the Daily Call, and Rob Bluey, president and executive editor at the Daily Signal. Ashley, this is stupid.
It is stupid. And, you know, it's funny. What connection does she have to Jackson, Mississippi? Nothing. She grew up in Berkeley, California. She grew up in Canada, and she moved to Washington, D.C., where she spent most of her life as vice president and going to HBCU there. So, yes, she did go to a historically black college, but it really depends on the day with Kamala Harris, what identity she wants to choose, whether it be her Indian heritage or her Jamaican father. So she usually puts on, if she's in places like the South, where she has no heritage there, which type of accent she wants to put on. We saw this at an Atlanta rally she did back in the presidential election, the wonderful 107 days that we saw play out. So, Kamala Harris really can't, putting her in a comparison next to MLK is quite disturbing in my opinion.
But she came from a middle-class family, so it's fine. Speaking of accomplishments, the FBI Director Kash Patel confirming that, quote, 5 top 10 most wanted fugitives captured in the first year of President Trump's second term, more than the entire 4 years under Biden. This is what happens, I guess, when the law enforcement is backed and focused on doing the job and unleashed on the bad guys.
Carl, it's tremendous news, and I'm glad to see that Kash Patel is touting the success of the FBI. For 4 years exactly, we talked about the need to get the FBI back in the business of law enforcement and out of politics. Remember, it was not too long ago that Joe Biden's administration directed the FBI to go after people who attended Catholic Mass or grandmothers who may have shown up to protest in our nation's capital. And so you have a situation now where I think the FBI is turning the corner. There's obviously still more work to be done. I think Kash Patel would acknowledge that. But the fact that they were able to nab 5 people off of the top 10 list when in 4 years Joe Biden's administration was only able to get 4 is tremendous progress and hopefully a sign of more things to come.
Yeah. All right, so here's another one, Ashley. The newly sworn-in Democrat governor of Virginia, Abigail Spanberger, her first act, obviously repealing Glenn Youngkin's executive order that mandated state and local law enforcement cooperate with immigration. Watch this.
State and local law enforcement should not be required to divert their limited resources to enforce federal civil immigration laws. It is a responsibility of federal law enforcement. Virginia state and local law enforcement officers must be able to focus on...
Wow. Okay, that's enough of that. I guess election of consequences, but she also signed an executive order directing state agencies to review regulations for permitting practices and slow down housing construction and all these other things. But also, she wants to increase taxes on rich people.
Right. The new saying is don't California my Virginia. So that's what you're getting here. And I think the GOP needed to look harder at Virginia in this past election. We saw this play out even with the attorney general in the state, Democrat Jay Jones, who now is the attorney general who threatened to kill and put bullets in the head of the former House Speaker of Virginia. So that's what we're looking at with this new administration and this state. And, Virginians got exactly what they voted for here. And that's not acceptable. Everything they worked hard for, they maybe should have worked harder codifying that in the legislature so Glenn Youngkin's executive orders couldn't have been overturned by people like Spanberger, which we knew was kind of bound to happen.
Yeah, I mean, look, moms that were fed up with the school system won that election for Glenn Youngkin on that issue.
Right.
And the GOP just kind of left it alone a little bit more, and this is when you get Spanberger. All right, also new flu shot warnings. It's actually going to be advertised on the box. Increased risk of febrile seizures. Now, what about, this was all way under the banner of safe and effective, apparently, right?
Well, Carl, this is one of those things. As a parent myself, I am glad to see that our government is taking steps to warn parents about some of the adverse consequences. Now, I think that it happens in a small number of children, but still, even one is too many in some cases. And so you have a situation now where I think parents are getting more information, whereas in the past, everyone was told, oh, there's nothing to worry about, just get the flu shot. And I think we've seen since the COVID-19 pandemic that parents are scrutinizing these shots a lot more, and for good reason. They don't want their kids to suffer any adverse consequences.
Yeah, look, the government also told us that asbestos was safe. So how'd that work out?
All I'm going to say is I never got the flu shot, and I never got the flu growing up. So.
Yeah, I'm a proud unvaccinated human here as well. So Ashley, Rob, appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, before we go, do you know that MLK himself was turned down for his Second Amendment rights? Beats next.
Everybody's reporting the same stories, the same spin. You turn the channel, it's always the same. But not us. We're different. We report the real news. No spin, just the facts. Turn to us, and you won't turn back.
Tune in to Rob Schmidt tonight on Newsmax.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
Do you have a yo-yo smile? Sometimes yellow, sometimes white. It's a constant battle between everyday stains and whitening treatments. Until now, get Smile Actives, the daily teeth whitening breakthrough that gives you a more youthful smile and helps you keep it.
At 43 years old, I don't mess around with products that waste my time. Smile Actives is easy, and it works. No gloopy trays, no messy strips. Just add a little bit on top of your toothpaste when you brush your teeth. And ta-da, white teeth.
Just add Smile Actives to your favorite toothpaste and watch the magic happen. Our patented Polyclean microfoam lifts away deep stains for a dramatically younger and whiter smile.
You have a choice. You can have those yellow teeth and just be old Nana or Pop-Pop, or you can be smiling and dazzling, full of confidence. I love my white teeth.
Scan, click, or call for your whitest smile yet. And if you order right now, we'll double your whitening free. Get an extra Smile Actives as our free gift to you, but only while supplies last.
I drink coffee every day. I started noticing that my teeth were not as bright as I like them to be, a little dingy. The Smile Active, it works. Got your boy gleaming.
100% of users saw whiter teeth. Smile Actives lifts away even the toughest stains from coffee, wine, and food, gently restoring your bright, youthful smile. Plus, it's safe for veneers, crowns, and dentures.
It's really a no-brainer if you want to whiten your teeth.
Clinically shown to brighten your teeth 5 shades whiter in just 7 days.
If you could use something so easy like Smile Actives to take yellow teeth to white teeth, why wouldn't you?
Act now. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll double your order free. But hurry, this deal won't last. Smile Actives is guaranteed to work. Whiten your teeth or get your money back. No questions asked. Don't wait. Get Smile Actives for just $24.95 and we'll send you a second bottle absolutely free. That's free shipping, a free extra bottle. That's an incredible 58% savings. Scan the code, go to smileactives.com or call to get your beautiful whiter smile now.
All right, did you know that MLK himself actually had the Second Amendment denied to him? After his home was bombed in 1956, Martin Luther King Jr. applied for a concealed handgun permit in Montgomery, Alabama, but he was denied by the local sheriff who deemed him, quote, unsuitable under discretionary May issue rules. Now, government bureaucrats, once again, always abusing their power to disarm what was at the time a law-abiding citizen facing real dangers, proving why shall not be infringed was written into it. No permission slips from officials who pick and choose who gets to defend themselves. I mean, that was my lawsuit here against New York, is they wouldn't give me a permit, sued them, and they were kind of forced to. Bob, even liberal icons become victims, though, at the hand of the left.
And when they're worried about their safety, what do? They look to go get a gun to protect themselves.
Yeah, it's weird. All these protesters now all have guns.
They have. I'm going to show that they all, and I'm sure you did too. All of them got guns all of a sudden. Weird. Yeah, weird how that works. All right, Bob. Have a good night.
You
Appreciate it.